The Senate has rejected a request by President Muhammadu Buhari to delete Section 84, subsection 12 in the new Electoral Act. The lawmakers rejected the request in an overwhelming voice vote during the general debate on the bill. Buhari said the clause in the law disenfranchises political appointees, but senators threw out the bill, preventing it from being read a second time. This position comes a day after the Senate had insisted on going ahead with the bill, despite a court order, a court ruling, I should say, asking it not to tamper with the law.
Yesterday, this point of order was raised, and you ruled that we should go ahead and treat this amendment. Mr. President, already the parties involved have decided to go for appeal. I'm of the opinion, Mr. President, the right thing to do is to allow the appeal to go so that the court order can be set aside. The fact that the court said the National Assembly should not tamper with law, the Electoral Act 2022 as amended, except through due process, does not mean that the National Assembly cannot consider the bill.
There are certain things that we see which we think we don't even have to come here to debate. One of those things is the fact that in every democracy all over the world, there are certain rules which we don't need to be told about.
Yes.
And one of those rules is the fact that you cannot be a referee and a player in the same field. One of the hallmark of democracy is justice, fairness, and equity. And indeed, Mr. President, it's a settled matter in law that you cannot be a judge over your own case.
In favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against say nay.
The ruling All Progressive Congress are making efforts to put things in the right perspective. Yesterday, the party technically confirmed the sack of Yobe State Governor Maimala Buni and Senator James Akpanudahe as chairman and national secretary of the Caretaker Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee, CECPC, respectively, after excluding them from the Central Planning Committee of the party. With the new list of convention committees, the names of Buni and Akpanudahe were conspicuously missing as the ruling party continues its preparation for March 26 National Convention. And though there had been plans to offer Buni and Akpanudahe a soft landing so that it will not seem as though the party embarrassed them, the fact that Buni was foot-dragging and Akpanudahe continued to live in self-denial, coupled with the fact that the party needed to move as fast as possible to catch up with the proposed date for its national convention. A lot to unpack. Day 2.
Well, I'll start where you left off, with the governor and the senator being eased out of the caretaker committee. I read a report today which I think is indicative of this whole mess, and it almost triggered a migraine. It's just so stressful and confusing that APC Senate caucus held a meeting and have agreed that Buni remains the chairman of the caretaker committee, and when he returns, he will resume that position. This is not, so we now appear to be governors versus senators situation. But then in that same report, it said that the Senate does not want Buni. So those who are saying what was just reported in the previous paragraph, what are they talking about? The whole thing is just really quite mind-numbing in all its convolutedness. But the bottom line is that as far as APC is concerned, the show must go on, and it has been dragging. I did mention here before, and I was right to say it, that Ramadan is a factor. Whether we like it or not, whether you're of a religious persuasion or not, then even private events like weddings, Ramadan is taken into account while you're planning your own private event, much less a national convention. So it really is, there's no time for any further vacillation on the part of the Buni-led caretaker committee, and he refused to fish. They cut bait. He's been cut off. Now, with regards to the Senate, you know, the mouse has roared. Surprisingly, the rubber stamp Senate has reneged on an agreement with the president, and according to this day, this is the first time since the advent of the Fourth Republic that this is happening. It's extremely significant. But whether or not it is commendable depends on where you're standing. All those who shouted nay so resoundingly would say that it's commendable, because they did point out to the fact that there must be a level playing field. It's extremely important. Otherwise, what are we really calling a democracy? It's hardly a democracy. You cannot be using any form of advantage against your opponents. All kinds of speculations have already been flying about what people might do while they're holding a political office and running at the same time, how they will fund that campaign. It's all speculation, which I actually think is unfair. But to avoid that situation from becoming reality, this is why the Senate has moved the way that they have done. On the other hand, there are those that will argue that it is lacks integrity to make an agreement with anybody, a sitting president, anybody, and then renege on it. The president was very clear on, I believe it was 25th of February in his address, when he finally assented to the Electoral Act. And he said quite clearly that the Constitution did not contemplate disqualifying certain individuals based on their the position that they hold in the government. And if the Constitution did not contemplate it, that clause should be deleted. Now, whether or not a clause should be deleted, I'm sure we're all in agreement that an enactment of the National Assembly duly assented to by the President of Nigeria. You can't just take a bottle of Tipex and swipe it and delete anything. No, there has to be a process of amendment. And the Senate has spoken, they are not going to amend it.
I mean, a lot to unpack. Real quickly, so I was trying to look for a better way to understand what is going on in the APC. Obviously, there are divisions. And one that came to me will be an illustration from my background in anatomy about the nephrons of a kidney. There's one called the proximal convoluted tube and the other one called the distal convoluted tube. So the proximal convoluted tube are the group of 19 governors that supports all of this. Nasir El-Rufai was on TV yesterday. Not all the 23 governors are in support of this. He said 19 of them. And he confirmed that they were the ones that spoke to the president, and the president says, take Buni out. Not my words, the words of Nasir El-Rufai. So it's been confirmed that the president actually told them, because they had a meeting 30 minutes before the president granted an interview prior to his departure. So he said, take Buni out, fix, the case that was planted way back in November last year. The court order restraining primaries of restraining the convention of the APC that was planted last year. And you see, this problem even goes beyond the APC. It's a Nigerian problem. We're talking about ex parte orders the other day. So somebody could go get an ex parte order, hold it in his hands and not see anything, waiting to use it as a bait to scuttle the convention. So he said, that the president said, deal with all these issues and do the needful on ground. He also went further on that interview yesterday to talk about possibilities of a safe landing. When he was asked about the case of Akpanudehe, he said, we'll take care of him. They said, how have you taken care of him? He didn't reply. He said, what he just said was that, he said, there are people in various committees, convention planning committees, that are lawyers. In fact, we even have a professor of law. So they will take care of him in tandem with the law and what the Attorney General says. That's one part of it, of this convoluted tube. Underline the word convoluted tube. That's the first one. The distal convoluted tube are the other ones you talked about, Tundu. The group of senators now, they had a meeting yesterday that said we are definitely with Buni. And guess what? They are not alone. You've got like 3-4 governors with them. So you've got a couple of governors with them and they are pushing from their own end. So it is a free-for-all. It is safe to say now, and I'm sure nobody will come back and start to explain the semantics between a disagreement and a division to us, that the APC is divided as we speak today. What I project is that 26th, if they're going to meet it up, according to El-Rufai was saying yesterday, they have to run as fast as anything. Secondly, they have to try to, vacate that ex parte, because that one still subsists, and they have discovered that one. But the question I would like to also ask them is, what about the other ones, ex parte, that they might have gotten about this convention that they don't even know about? Because only this one just came to light after they postponed their last convention on the 26th of February. So There are many landmines waiting for the APC. Like you said, Ramadan is another strong factor. Because once Ramadan kicks in, nothing can happen. The APC is officially divided as we speak today. I wish them good luck in fixing their problems. But please, with all the things they do, they should remember, by the 4th of June, nobody should beg INEC to extend any day forward to submit presidential candidates. Dr. Abati.
Okay, these are my views on this matter. Let me start with the Senate rejecting the attempt by the President of Nigeria to say that Section 84, subsection 12 should be deleted. What the Senate has done, and I think invariably also the House of Representatives, is to affirm their independence. There was an injunction pronounced by the Court of Justice Nyangekwo of the Federal High Court to the effect that the National Assembly has been restrained from further inquiry into Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act 2022 as amended. This was a suit that was filed by the People's Democratic Party, and the court gave that order. Now, in responding to that, the chairman of the National Assembly, Dr. Ahmed Lawan, made it clear that this is a violation of the rights of the National Assembly to do its own independent work under the Constitution. Yesterday, I said that the legislature derives its powers from Section 4 of the Constitution. The executive derives its powers from Section 5 of the 1999 Constitution. The executive derives its powers from Section the legislature derives its, the judiciary derives its powers from Section 6, the executive from Section 5. So under the doctrine of the separation of powers, what the Senate did yesterday in rejecting the President's proposal with regard to Section 84, subsection 12, and in rejecting the injunction placed upon it by the Court of Justice Ekwo, is to say that we are an independent body under the separation of the doctrine of separation of powers. And I think it's important, to realize that technical move in that regard. However, to go beyond the legalese, what the Constitution says and all of that, this has to do also with the very principle of it. When the President, after signing the bill into law, then told the National Assembly to take another look at Section 84, subsection 12, the President's argument was about security. It was about Section 40, which is about freedom of association, Section 42, which is about non-discrimination, and the fact that, this is not a good thing. But the lawmakers were talking about conflict of interest. And I think I must have made the point at the time that, look, political office holders resigning their positions is something that is already addressed by the Constitution. Section 137, subsection 1G, says very clearly that if you want to be president of Nigeria, you can't hold another political office. You resign ahead of it. Section 66, subsection 1F, says with regard to State House of Assembly, you must also, with regard to Senate, you must also resign your position. Section 182 talks about anybody who wants to be a governor of a state. If you're a political office holder, you resign your position 30 days to the election. Section 107 talks about persons who are looking for position in state houses of assembly. What the National Assembly has done with regard to this resignation of a political office holders is just to say, no, 30 days already provided in the Constitution and also in the Electoral Act 2010 will not be enough. You have to resign ahead of the primaries so that you don't have an undue advantage. And I think that there is a very strong argument in that regard. And for the first time, it is good to see a National Assembly that has suddenly discovered its spine from whatever it did, and to say, look, Mr. President, this is where we stand in this matter. Would they be able to sustain it beyond the general rejection of the President's request yesterday? Well, that remains to be seen. We'll keep an eye on that. The second other issue that was brought up is the crisis in the All Progressives Congress. Well, the governor of Kaduna State, who spoke, almost in a representative manner when the president met on his return from Brussels with a number of governors, has now said, look, what has been discovered is that there is a cabal, a group of fifth columnists led by Mai Mala Buni inside the APC, who do not want the convention to hold, and who seem to have a plan to delay the convention until May, and who seem to have put the party in a position whereby a Zamfara situation will affect the party again. And it was on that basis that 19 governors approached the president and said, look, this has to stop. And that the president gave the instruction to say, well, Mai Mala Buni should be turned adrift, and Sani Bello, governor of Niger State, should take over. Okay, so what Governor Nasir El-Rufai has done is to confirm that the president indeed played a role in this. So previously we were saying it has been alleged that this came from the president. No, he is confirming it, that the president was actually involved in it, and that this is the best way for them to save the party. However, Akpanondo also embattled the national secretary of the party, who had refused to recognize the new dispensation led by Governor Sani Bello. Has also come out to say, look, this is a coup against Mai Mala Buni. So clearly, Governor El-Rufai, saying previously that there was no division within the party, that there was a disagreement. Well, if you read the leaves, if you read the circumstances, I think it is appropriate for third parties to say, in fact, there is a division within the party. And yesterday, the party tried to move ahead because the party now has announced a zoning formula. Governor Sani Bello has taken charge. But I just hope that at the end of the day, the party will pay attention more to the principle of internal democracy, make sure that they do the right thing, and also ensure that going forward, they put the interests of the country first, they place the interests of the party next to it, and that all parties involved will conduct themselves after the fashion of gentlemen. And they need to learn a lesson from the People's Democratic Party. This was how the People's Democratic Party started imploding from within. And the party lost the 2015 election on that account as a result of that. Although some people, given their level of knowledge of the situation at the time, will say other things. Some will even say, oh, it was Ruben Abati that caused the whatever. Anyway,
it's all your fault.
That's not an important.
Everything is your fault.
That's not an important part of the story. Okay, but the thing is that political parties are important as part of the democratic process, and they must, ensure that they set a very good example. Clearly, there are forces fighting for the soul of the All Progressives Congress, and they must be reminded that Nigerians are watching. And I just to throw this in as an aside, I imagine that a man like Chief Udigi Oyegun must be somewhere having a good laugh. And also Comrade Adams Oshiomhole, former chairman of the party, he must be saying, well, they thought I was a problem. Now Nigerians can see that the problems are far deeper. But as politicians, they should be more interested in the survival of the soul of the party and the survival of Nigerian democracy.
For some good measure, get some popcorn too. It's all a good movie to watch. All right, thank you so much, Dr. Abati. And
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rota Sadiri is here to give us an African business update. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Tunu. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. We begin with news from the World Poverty Clock, which is an online tool that tracks poverty figures across the world. And according to their latest update, they've included COVID-19 impact on poverty. And so the images you're seeing here is of India. India has overtaken Nigeria in extreme poverty. We've got a couple screenshots from their website. I think we'll take a look at India first. So that's Nigeria first. But Nigeria, according to the numbers out of a population, okay, so there's India. All right, so we got India first. 1.4 billion population, 83 million is the number of in extreme poverty. You'll see the metric at the bottom left, the poverty threshold highlighted in red, $1.90. If you're below that, you're in extreme poverty. And then, so you can see top right, it's 6% of their population. Now we look at Nigeria. Nigeria was, I think, about 70 million or so is the number, about 33% of the population for Nigeria. Back in, so it's 70 million is the number there. The $1.90 threshold, 33% of the population. Back in 2018, when Nigeria overtook India, I think Nigeria was at 87 million and India was at 73. Those are the figures back in 2018, but now that has flipped. But of course, if you want to look at this in proportion, India's number is 6% of a 1.4 billion population. Nigeria is 33% of a 215 million population. So a country, you're basically competing with a country that has 5 times your population. So that's something to keep in mind. We go to energy. Sarah Week is going on right now. It's a big energy conference in Houston, Texas. There's a Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timi Silva, on a panel. Mohammed Barkindo of OPEC is also there. I mean, every oil and gas bigwig is in Houston, Texas, right? I think that today is day 3 of the conference. I think one of our biggest headlines, the top headline on Global Business Report, is United States Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm. But essentially, he was saying something he said several times before, that insecurity and low investment are harming oil and gas in Nigeria. The oil theft is at a high. It continues to hamper the industry, and investments are not just pouring in. And we've said this several times. You have to be able to attract investment. It was Adesua either yesterday or the day before that broke the news that Moderna is building a $50 million vaccine production plant in Kenya. So if you're attractive, the investment will come. So that issue continues to hamper us. And he was talking about hampering oil production here in Nigeria, meeting OPEC's quotas. To aviation, there are a number of press releases that came out late afternoon yesterday. We've continued to talk about this jet fuel issue that continues to impact airlines in Nigeria. Air Peace and ARIC both released press statements basically informing the public that the jet fuel scarcity could lead to flights being cancelled, them not being able to meet up with that.
It's
already started. We've reported this yesterday, right? This day newspaper had an article on it on the front page. So the press releases essentially just followed up on that story that we put out. I understand there's a stakeholders meeting that's taking place today in Abuja. Mele Kyari, the House of Reps, aviation stakeholders. I think the head of the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority is also going to be, Muda Shuaibu is also going to be part of that stakeholders meeting, where they're supposed to get together to figure out what to do about this situation. There's some options. Either you subsidize jet fuel, or you give them aviation players a grant, or they raise airfare. Or you just hope that, or you do nothing and hope that prices go down as far as the options are concerned. There's also an alliance that's been formed. This was also some news that came out yesterday. Air Peace, Max Air, I think ARIC, they've come together to form. They're literally calling it an alliance, and the alliance is supposed to support each of their businesses. So they say if there's any technical issues with a particular airline, then the passengers would gravitate to the other one. Co-share. So what about the costs? If you paid for a ticket for one airline and the airline can't fly, and then my airline comes and then takes them, am I going to take a share of your ticket fare?
You split the cost.
You split the cost?
Yeah, it's always something that's been bandied around, that could really help. Because see, when you look at it, not all of them have that level of capacity. So if they can co-share, they can split the cost.
Yeah, but Rufai, it's kind of, all right. Well,
you remember, sort of like Starlines,
Yeah, but how many?
It's just like when you go to England and you fly British Airways to England, American Airlines into America, you fly British Airways out of America on the same one ticket.
Yeah.
So sort of like that alliance, co-share. I think that's the future. And that's a fair thing to do when you have a market where you can't meet up with your cost, increasing costs and the like.
Yeah, but the costs are affecting everybody.
But it's working in other parts of the world. I mean, I told you.
Where they don't have aviation fuel scarcity.
It's to be able to cut the cost on those routes. And that's why you see what it marginally does is it makes the final cost cheaper. So I'll give you an instance. I want to fly from London to America.
You keep using international examples. Use a domestic example.
No, so I want to fly from Lagos to Abuja.
Which are the only two main hubs.
And the thing is, I have a ticket.
Right.
That I know can co-share. So rather than sticking with an ARIC that will not give me that flight, if there's another plane available, why can't the people go in there? So we still hold the money, rather than using the money to pay back rebates for people that miss their flights and the like.
I don't want to.
I won't take too much time. When you wrap your mind around it, it will work.
If you okay,
yeah,
all right. Finally,
Egypt.
Egypt is basically saying the Prime Minister of Egypt, Mustafa Mulab, is saying that Egypt can basically withstand the commodity price increases that we've seen in wheat. I think we should have an image of the amount of commodity price increases that have been caused since the Ukraine war. So you've seen wheat go up 48%. You've seen soybeans go up 23%. Oil up 55%. Oil dropped, but then it recovered a bit yesterday. And a number of other commodities. Egypt is basically saying that the wheat harvest starts in April. They will not have to make any wheat imports until later on this year. They are one of the biggest importers of wheat from Russia and the Ukraine. And that's our update.
Let's start. Okay, let's go ahead.
I do beg your pardon. I don't know if you expect me to turn cartwheels. That Nigeria is now the second most poverty-stricken country in the world. Yippee!
Yeah, that's what the data shows. That's what the data shows. So,
but 33% is more than 6%.
That's 3% is more.
Economists, you are very wonderful people. You always. I don't want to use the technical phrase. I don't want to be offensive.
Yeah.
But you guys are something else with statistics.
We love that.
We are just about 200 million in Nigeria. 70 million. Nigerians, they are poor.
Extremely poor.
Yes, okay. It's something that we understand. Even the cost of a sachet water has gone up. If care is not taken, you and I will soon start drinking sachet water.
I'm thinking of going back to my village.
Then, of course, you have a country of 1.4 billion people, and it has 80 million persons that are poor. And then you come up, somebody comes up with that story and says, oh, Nigeria is no longer the poverty capital. Other countries of the world, they are celebrating achievement, distinction. They are going to space. They are producing more scientists. We are struggling on the poverty ladder, and we are saying we are happy to be number 2.
We need to celebrate.
Rotus. No. You may be the one to be responsible for the implications.
We need to celebrate this.
You may be the one to be responsible for the implications. You give us a drink.
You just reminded me. You just reminded me of Benjamin Disraeli.
Yes.
There are 3 types of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Okay. Now to go to the other matter about the aviation industry in Nigeria.
Yes.
Well, the alliance you were referring to is the Spring Alliance.
Thank you, the Spring Alliance.
Spring Alliance.
Yes.
Aero Contractors, Air Max, ASMAN, Air Peace, and ARIC. Okay? And they're saying they will support each other when they have problems. In Nigeria, you can call it co-share, but it usually doesn't work. An attempt had been made in that direction previously.
Yeah.
Maybe you get to the airport and they tell you, oh, it's Dana that is going now. You try to transfer, your trip to Dana. It won't work that way. You have to buy another ticket. Okay? But as a principle, it may work elsewhere. But it may not work here because of administrative issues, because of ego issues. Some of these airlines, as is the case with banks, with other structures in Nigeria, they are egoistic empires where certain individuals just want to establish themselves. They're not strictly run as business in the sense in which you have those structures in other parts of the world. So that's one problem that will fail in that regard. But what all of us should note is how this affects the consumer, the client, the traveler. The roads are not safe. The railways cannot be relied upon. Even BRT
People are dying
on
there.
the streets of Lagos, you are not sure. You can be killed for even taking a public transportation system that is supported by government, whether the structure is franchised or not. So at the end of the day, this is about the plight of the average consumer. Now you can't fly again. You get to the airport 8 a.m. and you are there till maybe 6 p.m. before you get a chance. Okay, if the flight is Arik, you think Arik will now go and give those passengers to Dana and all of that. So it's a nightmare all through. And then the second point again is about what is government doing about this? You have the Egyptians, the Prime Minister of Egypt saying, oh, we can deal with the Russian-Ukrainian war, in terms of the effect. But inflation in Egypt is even about 35%. Consumer goods, the inflation rate in Egypt is about 17%. So I think
it's come down though. Inflation has come down in Egypt. So
well,
it's still double digits, but it's no longer
double
that.
digits.
Yeah, it's still high.
So
yeah,
the Egyptian minister is just trying to build confidence.
right.
There's no doubt about it. The entire world is affected,
Yes.
by COVID, by the war in Ukraine, and it could get worse. But here in Nigeria, we're not talking about that. I'm sure the relevant authorities will just look at the airlines and say, what are they talking about? But what they are talking about is that a year ago, jet fuel was about 190 naira per liter. Today, it's 650 naira per liter.
It's impossible.
Diesel is also almost impossible, right?
Yes.
I mean, some of our children who have never lived in darkness, they will start protesting until we get to a point where children will carry placards and say, what is going on here? That's when we will know that Nigeria is because there are some children who have never lived in darkness because daddy can provide diesel. The way this matter is going, daddy and mommy can no longer provide diesel.
Oh, yes, so.
Oh, yes. Daddy and mommy can no longer provide diesel.
diesel.
Kerosene. Yeah, that's what they are calling jet fuel. It's just kerosene.
Yes, no.
Even kerosene, the poor man's fuel, it's not even available anymore. So we would like to see the Nigerian government saying this is what we'll do about it, not in terms of rhetoric, but in terms of substance and in terms of outcomes to protect Tundu and I and Rufai. Are you one of us?
No, I'm not one of you. Me, I started using fan long ago. So AC suspended in my house. Fan. I tell everyone, if people want to on this, I say, remove your hand from that one.
Is it one of those fans that make noise?
Yes, I manage it.
That make a lot of noise.
That have coin, I do. It's better.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thanks, Tudu. Thanks, Rufai.